just describing my job, I'm co-employed by Alaska Public Media and KTOO. And through that, I serve 25 public radio stations throughout Alaska. Public media and public radio play a unique role in Alaska, since many of the communities we serve, we're the largest local news organization. And that puts me in a unique position, because if there's a problem with an election in a rural community, there's a good chance that I have a colleague who I work with who will be covering it locally. As a reporter, I'm more aware of the conduct of Alaska elections probably than at any point since I've been here 4.5 years ago, because of COVID and the greater reliance on absentee ballots. Let's see, as a state, Alaska relies more on paper ballots than some other states, and practically speaking, covering the sort of technical aspects of cybersecurity, I'm likely to only be in a position of covering it if there's a problem that comes up, or if I'm made aware of a problem by someone who's more knowledgeable about the technical aspects than I am. The component of disinformation and misinformation is very much in the forefront in covering elections, just like it is in just about anything related to covering politics at this point in time. Sometimes it's the misinformation just is unintentional, but it's certainly something that I deal with as a reporter in covering any issue. I guess I wanted to note that Alaska was ahead of the rest of the country in offering online absentee balloting 6 years ago. And it looks with COVID and maybe in general in the future, like there's going to be more use of online absentee ballots. There was a record number in the primary 2 weeks ago of online absentee ballot applications, about 8,500. That was a record for a primary. There have been slightly more for general elections over the last 6 years. And also it'll be interesting to see in the general election this fall how many absentee online applications there are. Let's see. Just regarding misinformation, I could spend all day on so many political issues, just tracking down conspiracy theories and bad information. And on the one hand, it can feel almost self-defeating once I go down a rabbit hole in social media of trying to understand all the bad information that's out there, because like I said, it could take up all of my time. But having said that, it is important that I have some understanding of the information people are being exposed to in the state, because they're not just getting it from public radio. And I think as a reporter, the best thing I can do is provide factual information that is unbiased and can counter some of the misinformation that's out there. Since I've been here, the biggest election issue as far as a problem probably was not one that had to do with cybersecurity. It was in the 2016 primary under the previous administration. There was a problem with training in the Kobuk River community of Shungnak that led to a precinct chair giving every voter both the Republican ballot and the non-Republican ballot. And since it was a close primary for the state election that year, it wound up being essentially determined by a court case over which ballot should count and how that should be handled. And in covering that, I became aware of the way sort of bad information can spread, where people, because there was a problem in a specific place, some people were raising broader issues about the administration of elections in Alaska. And that makes me aware in covering something like cybersecurity of how that misinformation can spread. There was no huge problems with the primary 2 weeks ago. There was one thing that reminded me of how the Alaska election system can really rely on systems that aren't the most advanced technology, where there was one precinct in the state that was not included in the initial round of unofficial election results on the primary day and immediately after, and that was Diomede. And it was because they had phone problems connecting with the Division of Elections office. That kind of thing might not happen in states other than Alaska, and it was just a reminder that sometimes our technical issues in Alaska are kind of not high tech. And then I wanted to mention with cybersecurity, the biggest issue in state government since I've been covering the state was also under the previous administration 2 years ago, where Governor Walker was going to go on a trade mission to China. And around that same time, a Chinese university probed a series of Alaska state government, its technical infrastructure. And while there wasn't a security breach, it was really a reminder that what happens in government in Alaska is of interest, can be of interest to really wide interests that have a lot of technical capacity. And it's just something that I think a lot of people are aware of, and we need to reporters need to be aware of as we're covering elections in Alaska. And I guess just one last personal note I wanted to touch on is that if you've exchanged emails with me over the almost 5 years I've been in Alaska, then you may have gotten an email from me just over a year ago because I had been hacked and my email account had been hacked because of a mistake I made in responding to an email. And then you got a later email from me that was actually from me that was an apology for the earlier email with some IT advice for how to handle it if you had clicked on the email inappropriately like I had. And on the one hand, that sort of makes me sort of uncomfortable talking at a cybersecurity workshop because I am a sort of a poster child for someone who made a mistake. And as a reporter, where my credibility is very important, it's something I'm really sensitive to. And I think it's something I'm going to be sensitive to the rest of my life because of that experience. Hopefully it'll be a once in a lifetime experience. But it was a reminder to me as a reporter about the importance of cybersecurity. And it's something that has always been in the front of my mind ever since then. So I'm just appreciative that KTOO was invited to be a part of this, and I had a chance to give a reporter's perspective on covering elections and the conduct of elections in cybersecurity. So thanks.